of itself. I was offered a position at Boeing to do vocational counseling, just that. As a position, it was a well-paid position. I didn't take it because of other circumstances in my life, but like I wanted to see my kids. For instance, one of the things that you said, part of the reason why you choose or don't choose often careers or things is because of circumstances around your life. There have been times in my life where I said no to very, very good jobs because of personal circumstances that I just wasn't willing to give up, things that were values, my values. So I remember at one point I had two job offers that were both six-figure job offers, and Matt was like, just do it for a year. Either one, I don't even care, just 1 year, like it would be so great. And I was like, I'm not losing a year of my kids' lives, because I knew both of those jobs were going to require way more, and it was fine. But at the time, it just seems so tempting. I've never been motivated by money. It's not my motivation. I'm glad that I'm not motivated by it. But it's easy to be motivated just by money, and it's a very dangerous trap because I've made a ton. If I told you how much money I've made at different times in my life, you'd be like, what? It's ridiculous, and it doesn't even, and then I've had other times where I've made hardly nothing. Like I was just a volunteer, working full time. But in fact, for the first couple of years we were here, I didn't get paid. And it was a choice. It was a personal choice. Not because we didn't need it, but because the church couldn't afford it. And so we made that decision, and we did it for a couple of years. And I was one of our members' meetings. He said, "Yeah, Heidi's the best volunteer we have at the church," because I was working full time, more than full time. And people were like, "What?" People didn't realize that I wasn't getting paid. And at that point, there was changes in the church. And so anyway, that changed. But God takes care of us no matter what. And if money is the only motivation, it's a very dangerous trap for people. So that's a really important with vocational, helping people do what you described, what they love, what they care about. Those kinds of things are really important, and helping people walk through that is very powerful. Things that don't conflict with biblical truth, that's huge. I cannot tell you how many people have told me things like, well, God put that woman right in front of me, even though I'm married to someone else. I'm sorry, but no, that's not how it works. God, yeah, you have how many people walk in front of you every day? Are you kidding me? That's not God, right? So we can convince ourselves of a lot of things if we can manipulate our belief systems if we're not careful. So it's really important that we know biblical truth and align what we do with that. There are spiritual gift tests. There's actually vocational tests. There's some really great ones out there. So those are also, there's some listed, I think, in the book, but those are great things to do. How many of you have ever taken a spiritual gifts test? A few people? Maybe? Spiritual gifts test? Where you are kind of spiritually gifted. How about any other kind of somewhat vocational testing, like what you might be good at or anything like that? Anyone else done that? 17. Exactly. Really? That's funny. It's junior high. That's a long time ago. That's funny. I'm not aging you, but but I want to just clarify something before Chad leaves, because I know he has to go. But Chad, he said something that might have surprised you guys. He said, I've been taking NCBI classes for 8 years. And this is his last class for NCBI. He has had to wait. He's been waiting to be able to finish this class because each of the classes only come every 2 years. And the way they're laid out, his job was conflicting with it before in the past. And so even now, it's been conflicting. But somewhat, but we've just worked around it. So to help him be able to take the class and be able to watch the video and do things so that he could complete it. So don't ever hesitate when you have needs or questions. Be assertive in your communication because it's amazing what God can do and help work things out in your life when you are willing to be assertive and not just take whatever comes your way. So I think it's good as an example I'm just using your life as an example of that. So it's good. Well, we're going to take, I guess we still have 5 more minutes. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go back then to these pages really quick because I wanted to talk to you guys about, I already did the 5 languages of apology last week, but the characteristics of a healthy problem solver. This is really important, and I think that if you can work toward becoming someone with these characteristics, you will go far in life. It doesn't matter what position you're in, what job. It doesn't matter how you communicate. What kind of communication you're doing with people, whether it's in your family, whether it's in your job, whether it's in school. These are huge characteristics these characteristics will take you far. So let's start with the first thing. Is a problem, is a question raised for inquiry, consideration, or solution, usually with human conduct, right? Any kind of question that might come up that we need to address. The solution is an action or process of solving the problem, the question or the inquiry, something that needs a solution, some kind of answer to a problem. So, characteristics for this is motivation. We talked about that earlier for change, right? Motivation is to resolve or deal successfully with the problem instead of to be right. Our motivation has to be the right kind of motivation. Have you ever experienced a time where someone was trying to help solve a problem, but it was really all about them just being right? Or maybe you've been the person who was just about being right. And no matter what, when our motivation is because we're right, we get ourselves into trouble. It's not a godly motivation. In fact, pride is one of the worst things. In fact, I think Marianne probably watched this today. Did you watch your daily devotional today? It was an excellent daily devotional, wasn't it? And it had to do with slaying our pride, really, in being a person who doesn't get caught up in our pride. And I'll actually play that for you in a little bit after our break. But it is really important that we realize and recognize that our egos get in the way a lot, most of the time. And when we recognize that, then God has an opportunity to change that. Most of our motivation has to do with our own insecurity, which really just deals with our pride, our ego. And God wants to slay our pride and help us learn that what we care about has to be not about being right or wrong, not about good, bad, good and evil, all of that. It's about truly coming to a place where we desire what He desires. And so it's really important that our goal in helping people or helping problems be solved is to deal with it, rather helping work through it and bringing success to that problem rather than being right. So, because we might even be wrong in our original thinking. I know I've done that multiple times in my life where I've tried to help with something and then I was wrong, incorrect, figured it out halfway through and like, oh, well, that obviously doesn't work, so let's do something different. Okay, that we need to face conflict instead of avoiding it. That's what we were talking about earlier tonight. So we need to ask that question, are we avoiding conflict just so that it's pretending like it's being answered. And that often has to do with anger. We've talked about anger, so I'm not going to go through that. Any questions? Did I see a hand? Oh, okay. I thought someone was asking. That we are a person who allows for and agrees to differences of opinions. Understanding people have different points of view can help us a lot in solving problems, because then we can gain the knowledge of all the different points of view to bring about a better solution. We often see with only our point of view. I mean, we always see with only our point of view, unless we open our eyes and listen, and our ears, and listen to what other people and their point of view is as well. And then we have better knowledge of how to solve a problem, rather than just being like, nope, this is how it has to be. We need to make sure we understand boundaries, what's acceptable, what's not. Knowing that human beings make mistakes, and that we can grant forgiveness and we can be forgiven as well, is important in the midst of healthy problem solving. That we initiate forgiveness. Forgiveness is giving up that resentment, but I would put even more than just defined as giving up resentment, but giving up that right to punish. Remember we talked about that? Did we talk about that in this class? Okay, I thought we did. Allowing God to have his vengeance rather than taking our own is really important in healthy problem solving. We don't need to punish everyone around us, or even ourselves. We need to allow God to handle things often in those ways, but we need to address situations without punishing. That was something that you were talking about when you were doing your presentation, the difference between punishment and consequences. Chad brought up consequences. Consequences are hugely important in change, in allowing change. We will have consequences from poor behavior and choices in life, and those, if we avoid consequences, or if we get in the way of people experiencing those consequences, we will actually block change from happening. Because most people do not choose change. Most people suffer the consequences of behavior, of bad behavior and bad choices, or poor behavior and poor choices, and that is then too painful. So the consequences of our choices and behavior becomes more painful than staying the way we are. That's what brings about most change. So, if you want to be a really healthy person, be willing to change all the time. So the more we can be adaptable and recognize that, hey, I'm just willing to change. I need to change in whatever ways I can. That'll help you be a healthier person and have less pain in your life, because you won't have to experience all the painful consequences of not changing. So it's a really important thing to learn and grow in. Let's see. Understanding the world is imperfect, and at times you will be a victim and other people will be victims. I don't know if there's... Bye, Chad. Thank you. You have this, so. Incorporating the intellect, the emotions, and the spirit is really important. That whole idea of multiple ways to approach something. So you're not just using, like many people will just only spiritualize something or only intellectualize something, or they'll just go completely off emotions, right? Well, that's just how I feel. So I did it because that's how I feel. That's why I make my decisions. A lot of people today do that, unfortunately, because it's very dangerous to simply go off your emotions. But unfortunately, that is actually the way most choices and decisions are made today. But it's very unhealthy, but it's also unhealthy to only be intellectual about something and only intellectualize and only make those decisions, because then we're eliminating in our emotions and the spirit as well. So we have to combine them. Or it's also dangerous just to spiritualize everything and not even look at anything intellectual. Often, I remember one time I was in a church. I was actually in a church where the pastor said, you can put your Bibles under your chairs because we won't be needing those today. And I actually thought, well, if you're not going to use the Bible, you have no authority because that's your authority. I don't need to be here, right? Like I can get any intellectual thing from the internet. You know, I can find truth from Dr. Phil that might be good truth, but without the Bible as backing it up, without anything else that, you know, confirms with what the Spirit is doing, the Word of God as the foundation, then it's a waste of time, right? I mean, it's not complete waste of time, but we need to work together. They need to work together. So those three things are really important. We want to use all of them when we're making decisions and working through problems. This is one that's number 10 is one that's very difficult to do. How many of us get in arguments about when we're dealing with a problem and it just escalates to multiple problems? We just jump from problem to problem to problem to problem, right? Because what are we usually doing? We're usually doing this. One thing comes to the table, then someone's defensive, so then they shoot back. In fact, I'll give an example. Someone might say, well, actually, it's something we're going to talk about next week is the suicide prevention. Let's say someone's dealing with suicidal tendencies. And this happens a lot, and you say, hey, I'm going to work with you on this. I'm going to help, I want to help you, but I cannot be silent. If you are really dealing with this, you want to assess the situation, but if you are really dealing with this is a real issue, then we need to get help. You need to get help. This is serious stuff. And so we do that, and then that person attacks us. Makes all kinds of accusations against you and everything. Why? Because you're exposing them. Very common. Very common. When you try to help someone, they will try to attack you. Super common. Because why? What did we talk about from the very beginning of today? Change. You're requiring that I'm going to change. You're going to uncover my security blanket, right? You're going to take the security blanket away. This is what I'm comfortable with. This is where I feel safe. And so you're going to take that away. And so I'm going to immediately attack you because I don't like what you're doing. Very common. Any of you ever experienced something like that? If anyone's married, you've all experienced that. There's no question in marriage that is not, Or, teenager. There's all kinds of, if you have children, if you've lived life, you've experienced this. So this is a really important thing. And as a helper, as a people helper, this is critical. If you do not understand that they will be angry with you, they will try to attack you, they will give all kinds of reasons why you are not, why they shouldn't listen to you. There's all kinds of stuff. If you do not understand this, then you will take things personally. You will not recognize and keep at the forefront rather than being right, but helping them deal with things rather than taking things personally. And all of these things we're talking about, you will not be able to actually help them because you're too busy trying to protect yourself, trying to be right. You might even hurt them back because it goes back and forth. They hurt you. Now you're like, well, forget that, man. I don't want to deal with you. You're, obviously crazy or whatever. I could give you so many stories about this issue, but I'm not going to. But this is really, really important to understand. The more that someone's problem is, the more extreme a problem or a situation is, the more extreme the response to you will be. So the more trapped they feel in their situation, which is why I say this is very common with suicidal issues. the more trapped they feel, the more all of that they feel, the less hope there is, the more extreme their response will be. So this is really critical to understand. So dealing with each problem at a time, not getting distracted. I think about the story with Jesus and, this is so funny, the story with Jesus and the woman at the well. What happened when he met with her? He talked to her, he asked her some questions, and every time he asked her something, she tried to avoid the questions and throw out these huge questions about things like, well, you guys think this, the Jews think this, and they would just throw out the big questions, right? For him to get in more of like theological arguments rather than dealing with her personally and what her issues were. If you read through that passage, it's fascinating how he responds, and he keeps coming back to her issues, her specifically, and her life, rather than every kind of distraction she kept putting up trying to distract him. Well, you guys say we should worship over here, and these people say we should worship here, but where is it really? And, distracting him, which is what we often do when we don't want to change, right? We don't want to deal with our stuff. So, dealing with things, you're going to have to constantly bring people back. Being able to anticipate positive outcomes instead of doom and gloom. People you have to be positive. You have to see hope. It's one of the most important things about helping people solve problems is there has to be hope, bringing change. It's why it's so critical, why hope is so critical with change is if you do not have hope, then there's no possibility of change, right? There has to be hope. You have to be consistent without forcing a solution, but you have to just keep being consistent with bringing about change. So if someone will throw something else out, just keep going back to the same thing, going back to the consistent problem, bring it all back to what you're discussing and talking about. Let's see, where are we? 13. Understanding his or her God-given personal power of self-esteem. This is really important. It's kind of what we talked about before. Understanding who you are in Christ. Really understanding who you are. When we understand who we are, then it really doesn't matter how everyone else, how that person is attacking you, what they're saying to you, how they're responding or reacting to you. We don't get distracted. We don't get caught up in all that stuff because we know who we are, and we don't get caught in this person's attempt to undermine. We maximize our common sense. Again, kind of going back to the intellectual side, but understanding reality. We exercise wisdom with good sense and an ability to discern inner qualities. That all of these things really have a lot to do with understanding and allowing the Holy Spirit to work in us and through us as people who bring about health in problem solving. So this is a great list of characteristics to work on and allow yourself to allow God to work on in you too. We're going to take a break and then we're going to come back. So let's come back at 8. Is that right? 8 o'clock. And we'll do some, I think, Donato, you can download yours so you can do your, oh wait, and we also, Desiree, I think Desiree, you want to do one? So let's do financial counseling first and then we'll do singleness, okay? Then we're going to talk about a couple of things and then we'll go through we'll do the other physical illness or inferiority and self-esteem and physical illness because I want to end with some stuff that has to do with those, okay? So we'll start with financial counseling when we come back and then do singleness and then we'll talk about some other things in between and then we'll go back to those and then we'll talk about some other things, okay? How does that sound? We were just talking about change. There's a couple things I want to bring up really quick. He doesn't have a box? No. Chad Zeck doesn't have a box? He has to have a box. No. Really? Yeah. Okay. Well, then just give it. I mean, I can give it to him. Okay. That's okay. I can just take it. I'll put his name on it. Okay. So change. I want to go back to change for a minute. Whoops, I have way too much stuff on here. Okay. One of the TED Talks, we're going to do that later. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So let's do this one. All right. Okay. Change is really important. We talked about that. But one of the things that helps us change, and if we can understand this, we can help other people succeed in change. One of the things that helps us change is success we've had in change from the past. So when we do make a change and there's success in it, then that motivates us to also make further change, right? Is that true? So when you recognize that, then helping other people change, when you can identify something that they've done to succeed by making a choice or by making a change in their life, when you can identify that and help them identify that, say, see, you did that, you can also do this. So you help them see how they've succeeded in the past by making that change, right? By stepping out, by doing something different, and help them see that, it might have been challenging, it might have been hard, but look, you succeeded, and so you can do this too. You can make this change. And that's huge. That's really a great help and motivation. What keeps happening to my, what is going on over here? Did I just close it? Ted wants to talk. That is for sure. What in the world? Didn't you have that open? Why did PowerPoint completely, you need to come back up here and get it because it disappeared. Yeah, PowerPoint shut down. Oh, look, Microsoft error reporting. PowerPoint didn't like something. All right, so, that's really too bad. I think you're gonna have to get it again because it's literally gone. See? I don't see it anywhere. Oh, there we go. Oh. It just shut down. So weird. Okay. Well, the other thing that George brought up was that with gifts, with these different types of assessments, spiritual gifts assessment, for instance, that they can cause people to be boxed in if we're not careful. So assessments are tools to help us, but we want to make sure that that doesn't constrict us also. Anytime we take an assessment, it is merely a tool. It doesn't define us. And we have to remember that. And we have to help people that we work with remember that as well, because it can be a dangerous trap if we're not careful. Thank you. Oh, okay. That's all right. So it can be a dangerous trap. This is the wrong one. That's okay. Okay. So we just have to remember that that can be a trap if we're not careful. For instance, I have someone who said to me one time, someone was crying, and I was like, should we do anything? Should we go, like, because they were the leader. This is when I was younger, quite a bit younger. Wasn't quite sure of myself yet. And so I was asking, and I was new in the area. So I'm like, should we go talk to that person? And the person said, I don't have the gift of mercy. It's not my gift. That would be an excuse to not have to do something God told us all to do, which is be merciful, right? I had another person, I was sharing this. I don't know what is going on with my stuff, but I'm just going to ignore it. So, had another person say, I have a command gift in leadership. I'm a leader, and one of my gifts, it was Strength Finders. One of my gifts is command. And I am like, yeah, and that's obvious because you command everybody around you, and no one wants to follow you. And until you learn how to use command along with some of the other gifts that can come with it, come alongside it, like compassion, mercy, learning how to communicate effectively in a way that people will want, like maybe some wooing, until you learn to use that, no one will want to follow you, even if you're a leader. That might be a strength for you, but until you can balance that with some other things, you won't be a good leader, right? So even if we have these gifts, we want to always allow God to hone them and shape them and shape us. Because with every gift, there's positive and negative with everything in life. So we have, for instance, Paul, the Apostle Paul, great leader. Apostle Paul was he was a motivator. He was great. When you read the books that he wrote, and you read in the very beginning, his first books that he wrote in the Bible, Paul, the apostle of Jesus Christ, who is called to, he just is all about kind of, yes, I am Paul. And by the end of his life, you read the books that he wrote at the end of his life, the servant of all, the least of all, the one who will serve everyone. Like his whole demeanor changes in his books throughout his life because God was constantly shaping, honing him to become more humble, more effective in many ways, to care and love. He was bringing more love into his life, right? And that's what he's constantly doing for us, is helping us be shaped into his image, God's image, more and more. And that can be challenging if we don't use assessments as tools rather than compartmentalizing our lives based on these tools, right? They're a tool to use, but not to define us. They're not used to define us. They're used to be as a tool. They're supposed to be a tool for us to utilize. So always be aware of that and careful of that. So I'm glad you asked, because it's a really important thing to say and mention. All right, so are you ready, Desiree? Awesome. You don't have PowerPoint, right? No. Okay. So, I don't know why this is acting like this. No matter where you stand, you can utilize any of this. Okay. All this.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Set your stuff on there.
Yeah.
Like an architect?
Huh?
No. All right. Mine is on financial counseling.
Awesome.
I found financial planning is stewardship, and stewardship is looking after someone's property in that person's interest. Biblical stewardship means accepting your role as steward or manager of God's money and other resources. Stewardship applies to daily lifestyle choices affecting time, talents, and money. And then money and possessions are given by God and are not of themselves bad. Money is temporary and can be harmful because we don't rely on God, we rely on ourselves. Then I have some causes of financial problems. A culture of consumerism that says most of us are subjected to endless advertisements creatively developed by marketing experts to sell their products. They spend trillions of dollars a year on advertisements. So we can all want the latest and greatest cell phones and whatever, and try and get us into that. A lot of people like that sort of thing. And distorted values, materialism involves a devotion to material things, and just not really being like family and people first. It's just, what can I get? Desire to get rich quickly can lead to gambling, people that try to do things the easy way, even like maybe stealing or just cheating people. There's resentment because of what others possess, great pride, angry at God because of their lack of wealth. They blame God because other people are wealthy and they're not. And there's unwise financial decisions, impulse buying. We've all seen that and probably done that at some point. It involves seeing and buying something that we don't really need, don't really think about. We just grab it because it's right there. And then sometimes maybe regret it, take it back, whatever, because we just don't really think it through. Speculation, that's like thinking you're gonna win a jackpot or the lottery, things like that. Just gonna try and take the easy way out and probably spend money that you don't even have. A lot of people do that. I see that at my work. Buying on credit cards are slow financial strangulation. People do not realize, I know I've done that, and it took me a long time to pay it off, and I did not think about it at the time. But I did finally, slowly. It's quite the process. And co-signing is being responsible for someone else's debt, which they say not to do, but you probably might be stuck with that. Neglect of financial obligations, just letting your bills go, not balancing your checkbook, and keeping track of all the things that you need to do. And then another cause of financial problems is lack of a budget, having no spending plan. Then there are no controls on spending. More impulse buying equals less control. And people just, they don't keep track of it, and the next thing you know, they're not enough money and things. Lack of giving. Believers are supposed to give to God, to other believers, and to the poor. And tithing. And I wrote on here, 2 Corinthians, each one of you should give just as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, because God loves a cheerful giver. Okay, some of the effects of financial problems. Worry about money or how to pay bills. Some estimates suggest that as much as 70% of all worries concern money. Family and marital problems increase because of financial pressures. Arguments over spending priorities can lead to divorce and bankruptcy. Guilt, envy, jealousy, resentment, or pride. Guilt over not paying bills, envy of others with more money. We need to be content with what we have. Emotional emptiness and unhappiness that comes when the accumulation of riches is the main interest in life, which we all know that is not the main interest in life. Spiritual decline or dullness, when there are wrong attitudes about possessions. And it's fine to have possessions, it's just how you view them. Nobody's going to take their possessions with them. Financial stress can affect nearly every facet of your life. Stress in general can cause heart attacks, strokes, and other health issues. Okay, some counseling methods. Help the counselor acknowledge the problem and determine to solve it. Point out that God supplies our needs and that it is possible to get out of debt and to manage money efficiently. Urge the counselee to face the reality of their situation. With the counselee, seek godly counsel. Prayer should be an important starting point in financial planning. Ask God to lead you where to start. Teach biblical principles of finance. God is source. He owns everything. Stealing is wrong. Coveting is wrong. The relentless pursuit of riches is dangerous. It can prevent spiritual growth. Giving is essential. It is an expression of our love and gratitude to God. It is pleasing to God. Okay, help counselees develop and follow financial plan. Get the facts. Make a list on paper of assets and liabilities and determine what needs to be paid first. Establish goals, financial hopes and plans. Set priorities, distinguish between needs, wants, and desires, which I'm not going to go into. Develop a financial plan. There must be decision about what can be done now and what must wait until later. Teach practical guidelines for managing money. Show people how to budget. Help people see it and avoid the dangers of buying on credit. Emphasize the benefits of living within one's means. Emphasize finances and premarital counseling. What debts are they bringing to the marriage? Do they have different spending patterns? What are their attitudes toward money, saving, tithing, credit cards, and budgeting? Raise the issues with finance whenever there is a crisis or life change. If issues are raised early, the problems can be resolved before they become major difficulties. Things like changing jobs, moving, retiring, prolonged sickness, death in the family. This was my verse that just kept coming back to me every time I looked somewhere. It says, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. 1 Timothy 6:6-10. That's the fastest one there.
Number one reason for conflict in marriage, number one, is finances. Number one source of conflict in marriages. Financial planning is critical. There is a verse that says, better to have little in the fear of the Lord than to have great treasure with inner turmoil, because great treasure can bring inner turmoil. I mentioned earlier, I have had a lot, and I've had a very little, and it's you can't trust in money. You can't. I worked with one gentleman. Well, I've worked with a lot of them that this has happened, but I'll give one example of finances. The person had a lot of money, huge homes, multiple homes, just tons of riches, and they had a change in. The company had a change in policies and all kinds of stuff, and they were struggling with finances, and so they basically laid off all the people at the top because that's where their money was going. And he had been there forever, and in a matter of 3 months, they were out of their house. They lost everything because he could not get a job. He couldn't get a job at McDonald's because he had too much experience. And and the amount of money that he was getting paid, they're like, well, we can't. You'll be miserable here, So he couldn't even get a job. I mean, it was horrible. Horrible what they went through. They had to move into this little itty-bitty tiny apartment. They were like, their whole family. They'd gone from having everything to nothing. And I cannot tell you how many people I know that that's happened to. Because we never know. That's why I said money cannot be our motivator for things. Because you can work your whole life to try to take care of things and you have to be financially, you want to be wise, but we don't know what's going to happen. Think about all those people who had the tsunami or like, for instance, an earthquake that took everything out, but the tsunami was huge. I mean, people lost everything they owned. And it happens over and over and over again all around the world. We cannot predict what's going to happen. What we want to do, though, is live before the Lord and trust Him and be wise and be smart about our finances. It's part of why Financial Peace is really a great tool to go through. And I would highly recommend anyone doing that. We're actually doing another class coming up with Financial Peace University, but that is a huge tool for people to walk through. I think last time the group of people who went through it, they got $26,000 in debt that they were able to get rid of in just a short amount of time. That many people to eliminate debt. That much. And it wasn't a lot of people in that class, but it's amazing what can happen when you're very intentional with wise counsel on finances, or what you're able to do. part of that is so that then we can be what you described, givers. We can truly have open hands to be able to give. Because when we are wise with our finances, we have more to actually give to others and to help others. And so that's really an important thing to live our lives that way. Debt, like you said, with credit cards and everything, is so dangerous. So difficult. The amount of debt that most people live with today is astronomical. I mean, I think it's one of the worst things that ever happened was credit, giving credit and finding a way to allow that. Because people haven't been trained how to actually be responsible with finances. And so it's very dangerous, and it's a huge trap. You will pay for things multiple times over if you're not wise. I think about, like, for instance, vehicles, great example. The moment you drive a brand new vehicle off a lot, it's depreciated immediately. One of the worst things you can do is buy a brand new vehicle. I mean, financially. It can be really, you're not going to be able to sell it back, even if you turn around 5 minutes later and try to sell it. Does that happen to you?
They have gap insurance. You buy a $40,000 car, it's only worth 32 when you leave the lot. So they only give you 32, so you buy this extra insurance.
Right.
That's crazy.
It's a huge, it's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, I had someone it wasn't that long ago, ask if they couldn't afford a vehicle they were wanting to buy. They asked if we might be able to co-sign for them. Yeah, and you talked about co-signing, and we were like, if you can't afford it, why would we co-sign for the loan for that? Like, maybe you shouldn't get that vehicle. Oh, but it's such a great deal. Oh, it's, all the things. And I was like, okay, but no, we're not going to co-sign on your loan. Sorry, not going to happen. They did get someone else to co-sign and anyway. And even had to make financial job decisions based on a vehicle they bought and it completely changed how they could even live, where they had to move to, everything changed because of that one vehicle that they bought that they needed co-sign for. So they need, you know what I mean? And it is a young person who just, what? Yeah. And that can get wrecked in a matter of seconds. I cannot tell you how many people have said this. In fact, just the other night, someone said this to me. They said, oh, I'm still paying on a vehicle that I haven't had for 4 years. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times that happens. So, financial wisdom and learning how to be wise with money is huge. And I would highly recommend a class like Financial Peace University for that reason. Good stewardship principles. So, good job. Wonderful, important, critical information. Financial stewardship is one of the most important things that you can learn in life. Critical. So, being wise with finances. All right. You want to come up and talk to us about singleness. Going on, Steven? Why isn't it working?
I don't know why it does that. Maybe we need. Oh, did it crash? Yes.
My computer crashed? No.
PowerPoint crashed. It's a PowerPoint problem.
Something was going on with PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what?
Hold on.
It keeps getting.
You can
We
reopen
have
it.
the packet, yeah. Everyone has packet, so if you need to, we can just go off that. That's fine. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with PowerPoint. I'll have to probably restart my computer. There it is again. Well, you can try it. See if it works, because it shut me down when I tried to do the other one too, so hopefully it will.
It's gonna go blue for a second because it thinks you.
I just click on the other
Hit the blue one. Yeah.
See if it works.
Use
Just
it.
wait, there it is.
There.
Don't go away, go back.
Oh, there.
Oh. Please, don't.
Keep your hard copy with it.
Alright, so, I'm giving my presentation on singleness. I tried to make the font bigger, because I was told to make it bigger. Not a lot of words on it. To start off, it says, what does the Bible say about singleness? In our book, it says that there isn't much that the scripture talks about singleness. But the one point that they did talk about was in 1 Corinthians 7. And to summarize it, Paul talks about how some people that are single are experiencing extra problems that come with marriage and are able to spend extra time doing the Lord's work.
That's right.
And then later on, they'll be on I think it's the last slide, but it talks about how everyone, anyone that is single does still have the potential to develop a meaningful lifestyle and a Christian lifestyle. But in contrast, the Bible does say that God calls people to single life. And the first person to experience singleness was Adam, but that didn't last very long, of course. And then, what are some of the causes of singleness? Some have not. One of the causes is that some people haven't found a mate or have decided to postpone marriage temporarily. Another cause for singleness is some people choose to stay single. Another cause is some people have had marriage breakups. Belief that cohabitation is better than marriage. And cohabitation, I had to make sure, is where a couple isn't married yet and they just live together. And but some people have lost somebody that they've been married to, or somebody that they found that they could spend the rest of their life with, and they don't recover from that. There's chronic illness and disabilities, and that can be physical for disabilities or mental. Unrealistic views of the opposite sex. An instance of this is if there's a story, but I can't say the person's name, but the person, he was always trying to find a girlfriend, and he was so attracted to looking at porn that he, when it came to them about whoopee, that he couldn't get hard unless he was looking at porn. So that's kind of like an unrealistic view. Immaturity, and then the last one is homosexuality. And for some of the effects of singleness is that there's problems with loneliness, there's problems with self-esteem, there's problems with identity and direction, there's problems with sex, there's problems with emotion, and then miscellaneous problems. And that can be very minor problems. But yes. And then for the ways to counsel singleness is being aware of our own attitudes with acceptance of their singleness, help unmarried people with acceptance of their singleness, guide interpersonal relationships, help single people deal with their sexuality, stimulate realistic life planning, working with single parents and helping people wait. And by what that means by helping people wait is that you can tell people to wait till they find somebody. Like it's not going to be instant. Like you're not just going to walk out of class and be like, hey, she's cute. Like for instance, oh, I'm married to this girl, but this girl just walked up, kind of thing, like she said. Right? And then, what are some ways to prevent singleness? Is to encourage single people to make decisions and to be active, to build stable marriages and healthy families, work to change church attitudes, stimulate ministries to singles, like just creating like a group and helping people deal with that at church, kind of like a small group. And then realize that being single is not the same as being second class. So you should help people realize that just because you're single doesn't mean that you don't have self-worth. Because a lot of people think that, oh, well, I'm single because I'm ugly, or I'm not size 0 pants or anything like that. And that's totally correct. And then everyone that is single can have a potential to develop a meaningful lifestyle. And a lot of people think that just because they're single that they can't have a meaningful lifestyle because of our culture now is all around that a marriage culture that you need to have a significant other in order to get anywhere now. That's it. Okay.
Any questions or anything for Denali?
I only had one question.
Uh-oh. I didn't do it last night.
Work to change church attitudes. What did you mean by that?
Work to change church attitudes.
Uh-huh.
A lot of churches don't focus on singleness
Okay.
a lot anymore because of the whole culture on everybody's married. And so, like a lot of people don't focus on being single.
I think one of the things that is very difficult with church is often there is such a focus on marriage, family, all of those things, and it does eliminate a huge portion. The majority, it's usually 40% of people in a congregation are single. That's the average right now. And so that's a huge, and so to be ignorant of the fact that you're basically eliminating a huge portion of your audience when you're only speaking about marriage or only speaking about family or parenting, for instance. Parenting can be even less, like in many ways. So being aware of those things is really critical for leaders, and so being able to help bring about understanding to that is really important.
To tie in what you just said, I was wanting to, actually he and I joked about it, but there's a singles bunco thing at Sandy Case's house. And I'm like, I really want to go, but I don't want to be the oldest lady there, I just didn't know. And then, of course, David Bowerman goes, I'm going to bunco. And I go, you are? And he's like, yeah, can't I go? I go, yeah, but now I feel like I can go,
Yeah.
And so I called her and she said, yeah, it's for anybody to go that's single. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I did. I felt like and so I could have not gone, and I love playing bunco, but I could have stopped myself from going just because of that,
I feel like that I shouldn't go now because she has a very competitive spirit.
David's going, it's all women going now, so.
So-
So you're gonna have to help Dave out.
But it's true, and often singleness, we can assume it's younger
Yeah.
people, which is also not true. And that's really important to recognize is that whole list that Donato read off about singleness. There are so many reasons why people are single. And there's, in fact, often, we are all single for a portion of our life. And many times we're single at the beginning of our life, but we're also single at the end of our life.
Yeah.
Many people find themselves single because usually couples don't die at the same time. So it often happens, and maybe even chronic illness or disabilities. And so being aware of those things are important, and caring for people in the midst of it. Singleness is a very, it can be very challenging if you feel the feeling that I'm not okay, like Donata talked about, because I'm single. I have to find someone. There's a lot of pressure to be in relationships, like in a, finding a significant other, or your soulmate, or all of those things.
Yeah, it's like, for instance, this happened when we went to, I was hanging out with Joshua Cragis, and him and I went to the roller derby. And it was it was weird, because I don't know anything about roller derby, but we went because he got invited by one of his coworkers, and we sat there and everything, and he's like, hey, all the other young adults want to go to this comedy club in Arcata. You want to go? And I was like, yeah, I guess I can. I don't have anything else to do. And so we went there, and I mean, it was so weird because everybody had like a partner or a person of the opposite sex that they came with, and it was so weird. And it's like, yeah, in intermission, I told Josh, I was like, I feel like I shouldn't even be here because I'm by myself, and everybody else has somebody. And he's just like, yeah, I kind of guess everybody does. And I'm just like, yeah, I feel like the odd man, and so like I'm sitting in like a corner by myself with them, and it's just weird. So
It could be challenging. It could be very challenging. And to understand that when we're working with people, to include too, often we don't think about that. We don't include people. It's really important to include people, and not just leave people out that are other people, and how we can care and love and bring about wholeness. The most important thing when you're single, good job, is to grow in who you are, right? Become the best that you can be, and be fulfilled in the Lord without having someone else, right? It's hard. And have lots of friendships. You don't have to have. Are you single? Is that why you're saying that? Okay. How many people are single in this room? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 people. So there are, many people who, we just are single. And there's a lot of pressure, and you don't want, it's really honestly unhealthy to be in relationships when we're not mature and we're not working through things and able to be alone. So many people cannot be alone. If you can't be alone, then you probably shouldn't be in a relationship. It's one of the things that I used to do all the time. People think I'm weird. I still do it sometimes, but it's harder to do here. Is just go to a movie by myself. I love going to movies by myself. I do it all the time. And I especially did it all the time in Seattle. And people thought that was so weird. Like, why are you going to a movie by yourself? It's not like you're going to a movie with anyone anyway. You're just staring at a screen. So, it was so relaxing. It was so nice. I loved it. I don't have to share I can eat all of it. I can even eat both huge tubs of it by myself, and no one else takes my popcorn. Anyway. Singleness is something that really is a tough thing, and the more we can help people understand about it, that it's okay to be single. Like, that's not a bad thing. And I love that. I actually have to correct you, though, that Adam was the first person who was single, the first person to experience singleness that we see in the Bible. However, he was single for a very long time. You know why? Because Adam, he was single for.
I said short. She's saying it wasn't a short time.
It wasn't short.
Then you got to write the publisher because he said short time.
Yeah, no. Think about how many animals he had to name. That took a heck of a long time. All those animals. It could have been 100 years. Well, he's just wrong. He's obviously not a theologian, because theologians would argue that it probably was at least 100 years that he was single. Exactly. But anyway, that's funny. So the other thing that is important to understand is that we really do have unrealistic views often of the opposite sex, and that comes into play with singleness. There's this, I mean, how has anyone ever experienced that in their life, and like give an example of how unrealistic views of the opposite sex might have created singleness? Have you ever seen that happen with someone or experienced that yourself? Unrealistic views of the opposite sex have possibly kept people single. Or made them single. Either one. Either the, hey, it's going to fulfill me, right? That person's going to fulfill me. We're going to get married. It can be that extreme, like the hey, everything's going to be wonderful. It's just going to be great. And then the reality that you're dealing with another person, another human being. You think differently. You act differently. There's, whole different worldviews. You come from different backgrounds, all of that, and you're trying to mesh that together. It doesn't matter who it is, that's a challenge. I don't care if it's same sex or opposite sex. Doesn't matter. It's unrealistic to think someone's going to fulfill you. And it's going to, fill all those voids in our lives. But then the other thing that's unrealistic views of the opposite sex that can often happen is, well, men are just slime bags, or women are all emotional and I just can't deal with that, or whatever these ideas are that are just not true. It's unrealistic. It's not real. They're not real things that are true. You may have experienced that with one person, or maybe 20 people. You may have experienced it with someone, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's true of everyone. We tend to, as human beings, compartmentalize. We tend to try to categorize people. And it can be helpful on the one side because we learn, right? Like, hey, this person is responding the way or reacting to me the way this person did. And usually that follows up with, or at least my experience has been, that follows up with this. This is the next step. And so I'm going to avoid that. I'm going to learn from my past experience that I don't want to repeat that same behavior or repeat that same experience. So it can be helpful in some ways because we can learn how to adapt and change and not allow people to hurt us, or, we learn from those things. And yet at the same time, it can also trap us from the good that can happen if we're not if we don't, or we aren't still open to seeing change. So for instance, because of my past history, I had a really hard time trusting any man. I didn't care who it was, because they basically were all untrustworthy. They, in my mind, even though I would not say that, I wouldn't say that, but it was true in the way that, why are we on week 9? Wow, it's all kinds of stuff's coming up tonight. Anyway, we'll just, so I'm gonna, I don't know what's happening tonight, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. So it's really important that we recognize that our biases or our belief systems aren't necessarily true, and we don't get stuck there. We don't become unrealistic in our views of people. Another thing that's on here under singleness, what are some of the causes? Belief that cohabitation is better than marriage. That is something that is definitely true today. A lot of people believe that that is true. Statistically, that is actually false. Statistically, those who live together before they're married are more likely to divorce. It is not a good, I mean, statistically, it's a horrible statistic. Way worse, way more likely to divorce if you live together first. So, don't believe that lie. Well, there's multiple reasons they think. I mean, you can't prove necessarily why it is, but it would seem that there's the idea that, hey, you're just testing it out. And so, well, I guess we get along, so we'll get married. But you've already started the entire relationship on the foundation of testing it out. So whenever anything does come up, even if you do get married, you're more likely to pull out because there's not a commitment. I mean, even though you think there's a commitment, right? Because the foundation of the entire relationship was based on non-commitment, lack of commitment. So that's something that can be a challenge for people, especially in the fact that today it is just the way things are. People just think that's the way to do it. My husband's parents, they were not Christians. They just could not understand why we wanted to get married. We should live together first. Like, we should. That doesn't make any sense. And when we would go visit them, they would always give us a room for us to stay in. And Matt would go sleep on the couch because we were, yeah. And it was hard because, we had to like be really, really strong. Because who would have known it was, totally different state and everything. Like, so, but we, lived with our own convictions before God. And so it's really important that we recognize and we know who we are in Christ and we live with that, rather than the ways that the world has and ideas that the world has. Now, Matt's parents would say that is one of the worst things you could do, is live together first. Now, 20, almost 26 years later, because they've seen that happen. They've watched it happen over the years. But at that time, it was a belief system that no one had much research on yet, because it was really new, like more new, that people did it. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in this that I should talk about. What are some of the effects? You kind of went through those really fast because you were like keeping in your time, Donato. But let's talk about some of those effects of singleness. Good job on keeping in your time. Problems with loneliness. That can happen in marriage as well. So when people are struggling with loneliness, helping them, going back to the issues we talked about loneliness before in the past, that's not just a problem with being single. It's a problem with in everyone's life. And so how are you going to deal with loneliness? Helping people recognize that. Problems with self-esteem, exact same thing. And identity and direction, sexuality. All these are things that are reality of not just being single, but life. And so helping people through those struggles without identifying it as a only singleness issue, and helping them see how to grow and walk through that can be really helpful. What ways, for those of you who are single in the room, since you're the experts right now, what ways on this subject, in what ways have some of these issues, any of these issues, loneliness, self-esteem, identity and direction, sexuality, emotions, or any other problems that come with singleness, what has been effective for you in working through any of those issues? God. Donato.
I'd have to say for myself, because all of my friends, like, they don't really care about like sex before marriage, and it's hard for myself because it's when you're around that so much. It's just
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, dude, like we're gonna go out to a party this weekend. You want to go? And it's like, no, because it drives, it, I mean, it does drive me nuts now, but it used to drive me nuts thinking like, oh man, if I went to a party, I know that girls will just be on me because it's just like, hey, how's it going? And that's it. So it's like, as a leader, you have to, that's another thing too. It's like, I have to think of it like, okay, I'm a leader right now. If I go out and some random reason, like a picture on social media gets posted, and then the kids see it from the church, they're like, hey, he goes to parties, can I go to a party? Kind of thing. And so that, and also me like saying like, okay, I'm going to become a youth pastor. Maybe I need to actually change my life and set things up for my friends. So.
It's really important. Like, if we really recognize that as Christians, as people that are following God and becoming like Him, that whatever we post on Facebook, whatever we represent, wherever we are, even when we think we're not anywhere near whatever, our friends, or, someone might not see us, like I said, being in another state, like, who would know, we are going to stand. This is the thing that constantly I go back to over and over again and have throughout my life. One day I'm going to stand before God alone. Like, I'm not going to be able to say, well, that husband you gave me, or that pastor or leader you gave me, or that child you gave me. It doesn't matter. What did you do? Right? How were you faithful to me? How did you represent me? How did you live your life? And that's really helpful for people to come to, of recognizing I'm the one responsible. And when I take that seriously, I have the ability to, like what you were talking about at the break, change my life to become the most that it can be and the best that it can be, because I can't blame it all on anyone else. I take full responsibility. And that is a challenge, because today we often blame and find reasons for every single thing we do, rather than take responsibility for the part that we play. Now, not everything's not our fault. I mean, obviously, let's say, I was molested. That's not my fault, but I could take responsibility with what I do with the things that have happened in my life. I was abused. Okay, but I still have the ability, right? So every one of us has the ability to choose and make choices based on being responsible with what we have to be responsible for. Don't hold on to the things that are not ours to hold on to. It's not our fault that something happened, that my dad was an alcoholic, let's say, or like any of our lives, you go through any one of our lives, and we can all look back and we have lots of excuses and reasons for the things. We could excuse away everything. Every one of us could, because we all have things in our lives that we could just use as excuses for behavior. But if we're going to be mature, I thought about this today. I was actually thinking about this. The Bible, what is the question that 3-year-olds ask constantly? Why? And many times we are not mature because that's all we do is ask why. We're acting like a 3-year-old. Why? But why? But why? Why? Why, God? Why? And we spend all our time wasting our lives being immature, stuck with the why, instead of allowing God to mature us into trusting Him and saying, what now? What next? How can I change from often the why isn't what matters. Most of the time, the why isn't what matters. What matters is, what are you going to do now? And we get really stuck in the why of problem solving, rather than, because then we never can deal with the problem, because we get stuck there and we don't say, what now? Why is important to ask. You should ask the question, is there anything I need to pay attention to? Why did this happen? What did I do that I should change? All of that. But we don't want to get stuck there, because if we're stuck in the why, we never move forward. And that's really important to help other people too, so they don't get stuck in immaturity. Why, and never get anywhere. So, let's not be 3-year-olds in our lives. We can ask the question why, but don't get stuck there. So, and allow God to bring us to maturity. All right. Singleness. Great subject. We're going to talk about inferiority and self-esteem next, which is a big one. And Butch is going to share with us on that. Do you need this? Ooh, awesome. Hopefully won't be, okay, here we go. Here you go. Oh wait, oh shoot, I think I just disconnected, sorry. Oh no, I didn't, okay, here we go, there you go. It's still not working.
Flash on, there it is.
Okay.
All right,
It's a good thing though.
wait, is that right? Oh, going back to the top. There we go. I think I must have hit something. All right, there you go.
Good move.
Okay. Moving back for no reason. Okay.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. I'm going to talk about inferiority and self-esteem. First, what is self-esteem? I guess what it's not. It's related to self-image and self-concept, which is sort of a mental picture of yourself, like your strengths, your weaknesses, that kind of thing. But self-esteem is this evaluation of what your self-worth is as a person. Those terms are not biblical terms, they're psychological terms. Most people feel some insecurity in their lives or inadequacy to some extent. Do all of you feel that to some extent? Is there anyone that doesn't? Well, I can say that I have fought the self-esteem battle my entire life. So it's kind of close to my heart. Being insecure or feeling that way, lack of confidence, has always been a battle for me. Now, what self-esteem is not is, which I think has gotten confused over the years, is it's not pride. And Heidi alluded to that pride is really kind of the anti-God. But I think that's where many of us humans don't understand. Because we live in this world where, you grow up thinking pride is a good thing. Well, I'm proud of what I did, I'm proud of what I accomplished, or somebody telling me you should be proud, right? We should be proud. So that's supposedly a good thing, and I think that gets too often equated with self-esteem. You're proud, so you have self-esteem. But that's not really the truth. The truth is that self-esteem really comes from God. It comes from love, self-love. And by the way, self-love is not arrogance, is not pride, as long as your love is for yourself like you love others. So what we want to accomplish is humility. Humility is defined in the book as an accurate self-appraisal where we accept our weaknesses and sins and acknowledge that we have unique gifts from God, right? So we know that God loves us. We know we are fallen, but that God still loves us and that He has given us unique abilities. And so really, we find ourselves, or many of us, striving in this world to achieve something, to make money maybe, to have a good job, to have status, to have nice things. And then we discover at some point that we're just completely empty. That really didn't give us what we want, what we need. And what we should be shooting for is we know God loves us, we know we are not better than anyone else. And God doesn't want us to have in our minds that we are better than anyone else. And that's true humility, where we just want to realize, well, what gifts did God give me and how can I actualize those? And that's kind of difficult. We go through life and we're trying to figure out what we're good at, what makes it, what we're passionate about, those kinds of things. So it's kind of really the crux of this whole thing. When we talk about the effects of self-esteem and the causes of self-esteem, but it seems to me that the crux of it really is this pride versus humility issue, and having faith that God does love us and that we are as good as anyone else. We're all the same. We just have differences in our abilities, and those are given to us by God. When we do have success in the sense of material things or status, whatever you want to call it, that's really coming from God. And so instead of thinking, well, I feel pretty good about myself, or I feel better than someone else, we should be giving that glory to God. It comes from God. So self-love, love of others, is the basis really for self-esteem. But what does kind of cause this lack of self-esteem, that we all struggle with? It's a complex concept, because you could look around at your families, for instance. In my family, I have 3 brothers and a sister, and we didn't have a father who ever told us he loved us. And I'm not complaining. My father, grew up, in a different era, and he had his issues. Okay? But that's the reality of it. And so that was, I think, a big thing in our family. But how did we react to it? I reacted to it. I'm not sure why, but that I needed to get approval. And so even in the face of feeling insecure, lacking self-esteem, and being fearful of failure, I'm very fearful of failure, still am, nevertheless persevered and had considerable success, earthly success, but watched my brothers and my sister really not have that. And I've always wondered really why, because I don't have any more talent than they do. In fact, in many ways, they have more talent than me. And they kind of, my feeling is they sort of stayed in a comfort zone. We talk a lot about that in church. You got to try to get out of your comfort zone. Attending this class, probably for a lot of us, was a little out of our comfort zone. So that's a good thing. But if we don't do that, then we kind of can stagnate. And if we feel insecure, we don't have self-esteem, we're not going to be able to overcome it. And then the biggest thing, of course, is, accepting the Lord and having faith and understanding that we are okay and that we are loved and So other causes would be physical causes. You know, if you feel like you don't look very good physically, obviously. If you have handicaps, physically disabled, those kinds of things can cause a lack of self-esteem. If you don't have any money, you're broke, you're from a poor family, that can contribute to it. I probably need to return to this one. You know, your culture, the country you're in. We're in the United States, so, you know, you just turn on the television, you know, read the news, and, you know, there's all this focus on earthly achievement and, you know, achieving these, accumulating these idols and things like that. So, I mean, that's what we face in this country. That's the reality of that. Faulty theological beliefs. There's been some history that that self-esteem was kind of equated with pride. That pride was good, you know, it seemed like a good thing, and that was self-esteem. So that the churches in some areas decided that, well, we know pride is bad in the Bible, so therefore self-esteem is bad. Okay. But self-esteem is not bad, because self-esteem is not pride. Self-esteem is, you know, humility and understanding that the Lord loves us and that we do have these unique abilities, and so we should have confidence from that. We can struggle with a lack of self-esteem where we do something wrong, where we feel guilty, and we don't receive forgiveness, or we don't seek forgiveness, or we don't forgive others. And we carry that around, and that can contribute to a lack of self-esteem as well. And then I talked a little bit about the parent-child relationship, you know, that whole concept of self-esteem. Can start very early, you know. Again, I mean, when you have someone in your life, and it doesn't always have to be a father or a mother, but someone, even if it's an uncle or a close friend, you know, an adult that you latch onto that can, you know, be there when you fail and you feel terrible, like you don't feel you have any self-worth, and you need that person there. If you don't already have it spiritually, you need someone there to tell you that you are okay. You're going to fail. I mean, the best thing that, you know, my father could have done for us children would have been to make sure that we know he loves us, and also that, you know, when you fail, you don't really fail, because everybody fails. And, you know, even in the book, there's some excerpts from some very famous people who failed. Seems like forever, and then they had this great success, you know. So what failure comes down to is, don't beat yourself up over it, learn from it. It can actually be very, very beneficial. And, you know, I wish I had looked at it that way years and years ago. And I think I'm about to the end here. Oh, I'm missing a page. All right. Oh, I skipped over counseling. I skipped over effects, too. So it can motivate you. So for me, it motivated me. Now, I didn't enjoy it because, you know, I was always fearful and, you know, anxious, feeling angst. But, you know, for whatever reason in my life, you know, I just pushed forward. But then, you know, even getting the success, it was in the end empty until I, you know, accepted Jesus. And like I said before, I mean, it just started, it took 60 years. But, and then other people respond by, you know, trying to get more things, you know, a better car, a new car, not a used car. Pile them up, you know, because that'll cure my lack of self-esteem, but it won't work. And then give up on challenging yourself. You know, again, I kind of see that in some of the family. And then counseling, well, of course, you want to support them, you want to make sure they understand, you accept them, and you really want to get into the whole biblical thing about, look, we're all different, we have different talents, it's just a matter of finding those, failure's not really failure, you just keep moving on, you keep learning. Work on negative self-talk. Yeah, self-talk is, probably all experience it a little bit, wow, gee, I can't do it. Your mind is telling you, I'm nervous, I don't think I can win the game, I don't think I can do well, I don't think I can win the case, or whatever. And it's just kind of sometimes can drive you absolutely nuts. It's like you can hear it going on up there, and you have to turn that switch off, however you can do it, and turn on a different switch. I remember being in law school, and I was really having a hard time having any confidence. I'm surrounded with all these people who were very smart and seemed very confident. And so, I don't know, I went to some class somewhere, and they talked about affirmations. So I went home, and for the next month, every night I wrote, I, James Dale Butch Poovey, like myself. I am a lovable person. And I wrote that out, and I wrote that out, and I wrote that out. It actually helped.
Okay.
I still remember that. So we need to pursue realistic goals. That's part of trying to figure out where your talents lie, and then get going in that direction. Of course, get group support. There's a lot more people that suffer from, lack of self-esteem and insecurity than we think, right? And so we actually get in a room with them and talk, it's like we'd be surprised, right? And how often would we be surprised, when we look at somebody and go, that person has really got it together. They're always on top of it. They always win. They always do good. They seem so confident. And then, 6 years later, you hear that they went off the deep end. Right? I mean, how could that happen? And he lost his job and screwed everything up. And it's like, whoa, well, something was missing there. So how we perceive others, is kind of often all fouled up. We could review our history, if we're really struggling. We go back and say, okay, let's sit down and let's get the facts straight, and when I was in high school, this is what I did. When I was in college, kind of analyze it, and then you sort of like get a new foundation, and then from there, go forward, and that can be helpful, I think. Prevention, to me, it's mostly meditating on, the biblical teachings of human worth and God's love, knowing the distinction between pride, which is the killer, and humility, which, humility is powerful, actually. So that was the sermon last Sunday, in part. Now Jesus washed the disciples' feet, got down his hands and knees and did it, one after another, and talked about how being a servant is what we need to do, and that it is powerful. And so that just seems, like it doesn't make sense to most people, but that's why we have to meditate on that and understand the word in that regard, because it is really true. We think about it, and it kind of goes along with, how we diffuse situations and conflict is being humble, being, showing humility. It's like, hey, even if we're right, maybe we should just back off, and stay calm, and show our love. And sometimes that will just diffuse it just like that. I've seen that in my practice. People are at each other's throats about something, and sometimes you just got to sit there. I've done mediations. Sometimes you just got to sit there and let them vent. You let them vent for an hour. And then when they're done, okay, now, what's the problem?
How are we
What's
gonna
the
do it?
issue? And we try to resolve it. But, you know, when I was younger, I was always in a hurry, like interrupt, don't listen, don't let them finish. It's like, this is costing everybody money. But as a matter of fact, when you let them have their say, then the rest of the day speeds up. So, anyway, the Christian community has a big role in prevention, obviously, and of course, parental guidance. So, any questions? Thank you.
Very important. And here's this. Sorry, I had it in my hand. Super important, really critical. And I wanted you guys to listen to this. It is not very long, just a couple minutes, but I wanted you guys to listen to this, that Marianne already got to listen to this today. But it's the devotion. And I don't know if there's a speaker, huh? I can plug this in? My phone? Ooh. To the speaker? Sweet. That's pretty awesome. Okay.
They have an aux cord. Where's the aux cord?
Oh, there we go. Okay. Into my phone. And it goes into this. Nice. Okay, let's see if this works. Turn it around that way so people can hear. Okay. See if it'll come on. It says headphones. An understanding of who we are, who He's created us to be, and not who we try to believe we are or try to set ourselves up to be. So you missed it, man. You're gonna have to listen to it. You c-
Well, I was trying to open the door and I'm like,
Anyway, so we're going to talk about next week. I want to give you everyone this, and you need to make sure you come next week for our suicide prevention workshop. It is be here right at 6:30 because she's going to start like right away, pretty much, and we have a couple presentations though too. And so make sure you're ready for your presentation next week. If your name is on the list, if you need a reminder telling me you're doing one. I'm so excited. So this is really important, and okay, good. And we need everyone to, if you need more, if you want to invite anyone, if you have anyone else, I actually have extras if anyone wants to invite someone. Hand these out to people. Anyone? If you have anyone, any leaders, anyone that you think would help, if there's someone, even, how many you want? Okay. Anyone else? This is really important. If there's people who you think could benefit from this, have them come to the class.